Hello Magpies, let's dive into an interesting situation unfolding at St. James's Park. One of our longest-serving players, Callum Wilson, could be staying at Newcastle United longer than expected, but there's a big if involved. Now, we all know that Newcastle is on the verge of an exciting summer. Whether we lift a trophy or secure a spot in the Champions League again, a squad rebuild seems inevitable. There's talk about our spending power, the club's strategy with player sales, and the fact that we've been holding back on major signings for what feels like ages. The summer window could be a turning point for Eddie Howe and his team. One of the biggest decisions the club has to make revolves around Callum Wilson. The striker's contract is up this summer, and many assumed his time in black and white was coming to an end. With his history of injuries and Will Osula emerging as a potential understudy to Alexander Isak, it made sense for Newcastle to consider moving on. However, the latest reports suggest that Wilson's future isn't written in stone just yet. According to the Chronicle, Wilson could actually stay at Newcastle if the club qualifies for Europe next season. That extra fixture congestion would put more strain on the squad, meaning Howe might want to keep Wilson to help manage the workload. This completely changes the conversation. If Newcastle secures a European spot, suddenly Wilson's experience and quality could become invaluable. We all know how good Wilson is when he's fit. On his day, he's one of the most clinical finishers in the Premier League. His movement, composure in front of goal, and ability to score crucial goals have made him a fan favorite at St. James Park. The only issue? His body hasn't always kept up with his talent. The number of injuries he's suffered has been frustrating, both for him and for us fans. Interestingly, Wilson is reportedly open to staying at Newcastle, even if a final decision is made late in the process. Despite previous links to the Saudi Pro League, the striker wants to remain in England. That's a big boost for us because it means if Newcastle does want to keep him, he's unlikely to push for a move elsewhere. This is one of those debates that will likely split opinion among fans. Some will argue that it's time to move on and invest in younger, more durable options. Others will insist that keeping Wilson makes perfect sense if we're in Europe. After all, depth is crucial when fighting on multiple fronts. At the end of the day, this decision will come down to a mix of factors: Wilson's fitness, Newcastle's transfer plans, and, most importantly, whether or not we qualify for European competition. If we do, don't be surprised to see Callum Wilson leading the line for Newcastle United next season. What do you think, Magpies? Would you keep Wilson for another season, or is it time to part ways? Let me know in the comments. That's all for Part 1. Stay tuned for Part 2, where we'll discuss an exciting youngster's injury setback and what it means for Newcastle United. Want me to continue? All right, Magpies, let's shift our focus to one of the most exciting young talents coming through the Newcastle United ranks, Trevon Sanusi. The 17-year-old winger has been turning heads with his performances, but unfortunately, he's now facing a tough setback due to injury. There's been a lot of buzz around Newcastle's youth setup recently. We've seen promising talents emerge, and while our academy hasn't always been the most productive, things seem to be changing. Lewis Miley has already proven he belongs at the highest level, and there's a growing sense of excitement around other young players like Garang Kuol. But today we're talking about Trevon Sanusi, a player many inside the club believe is one of the most exciting prospects in our system. Sanusi recently confirmed on Instagram that he'll be out for another 8 weeks after already missing 5 due to an ankle injury. That means he'll have spent more than 3 months sidelined, just as he was starting to make a real impression. For those who haven't been following his progress closely, Sanusi made his first team debut against Bromley in the FA Cup earlier this year. It was a massive moment for him, and while breaking into the first team this season was always going to be difficult, there was hope that he might get more chances, especially after Miguel Almiron's potential departure. The timing of this injury couldn't be worse. Newcastle is set to face Brighton in the FA Cup, and while Eddie Howe is expected to name a strong team, there might have been an opportunity to give Sanusi some minutes, depending on how the game played out. Unfortunately, that door has now closed, at least for the time being. Despite this setback, the club still has huge expectations for Sanusi. Sources within Newcastle have tipped him as one of the most exciting players in the academy, and his versatility is a major asset. He can play on both wings, making him an interesting option for Eddie Howe moving forward. Looking at the bigger picture, Newcastle doesn't have many natural right wingers in the squad. Apart from Jacob Murphy, most of our other options, like Anthony Gordon, are better suited to different positions. This is why Sanusi's development is so important. If he continues on his current trajectory, we could see him play a more prominent role next season. Of course, the club will be careful not to rush him back too soon. He's still only 17, and injuries can be particularly frustrating at this stage of a player's development. But if he can recover fully and get a solid preseason under his belt, there's every reason to believe we'll see a lot more of him next season. With his injury keeping him out for another 2 months, the immediate focus will be on recovery. Once he's fit, the club will have to decide on the best path for his development. Should he stay with the first team and fight for minutes, or would a loan move make more sense? Given how highly rated he is within the club, a loan might not be necessary. If anything, he could be gradually integrated into the first team, just like Lewis Miley has been. One thing's for sure, Newcastle fans should keep a close eye on Sanusi. The potential is there, and once he's back, he could be knocking on the door of the senior squad sooner than expected. It's a shame we won't see him in action for a while, but let's not forget, this lad has talent. He'll be back, and when he is, Newcastle United will have yet another exciting young player to look forward to. What do you think, Magpies? Would you like to see Sanusi given more chances next season, or should the club send him out on loan for experience? Let me know in the comments. That's it for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, keep believing. Newcastle United is the greatest club in the world, and the future is looking bright. Take care, and I'll see you next time.